As we're going through the slides and the inquiry, just to really try to stay present with your body and your breath. It's a exercise in self-regulation, this whole inquiry this time. Some of the things we looked at last week, and these are familiar to most of you. So the tools that we use to regulate around thoughts are that we take that step back with images, that we do tapping. We put things in a frame, a picture in a frame. We have it on the other side of the room. You can do this in your mind's eye too, but I think it's helpful to have your eyes open. Once we get that picture in the frame, we can take our eyes around the outside space, in each direction, or we can do that focus shifting where we focus in on it and then we notice everything else that's on the wall, and then we focus in on what's in the frame. There's all of these ways that we regulate using thoughts. One of the ways that we regulate using our body are to do with breath. So we have the longer exhales, we relax our body. And then when we're working with sensation, we notice the specifics of the sensation. Is it hot or cold? What's going on with that? So when we have a sensation that feels like it's associated with something that's not safe, that we're dreading, then we, generally speaking, try to avoid that. We don't want to feel those kinds of things. And then the practice, we're all here because we do have this kind of association or this commitment to being present with ourselves, is then we really are present with whatever the sensations are. We might do welcoming practices. We might look at the space around the sensations and notice that the sensation is just here in my throat and chest. It's not in my whole body, that kind of thing. So we have these tools that we're working with. And then, of course, the goal of our nervous system is to keep us safe. So we have this neuroception, which is our unconscious perception of safety and threat. And the reason that we're doing this dress rehearsal is because I find it such a good tool to bring forward or bring out of unconscious mind. What is the threat? What is it that's making us feel edgy about something or uncomfortable about something? So if we're at work or if we're in a family situation or with friends or whatever it is, and we hear a certain tone of voice that reminds us of a tone of voice or a look on someone's face that was dangerous to us in the past, then we're going to react to that. And we can't really help that reaction, but with this mindfulness, somatic mindfulness, we can notice it, and then we can use the tools to regulate. These slides relate to work, and they can also relate to home or family, or if you get together with a group of people for any reason. So one of the things that we do often is we look around for cues of safety. And if you're looking around a mental image of a room, you could think about the people who are going to be there. But if you're actually in a room with other people, when we're in a Zoom room meeting, looking around at the other people's faces on the screen or the names, some of those are going to be people who you feel really comfortable with. Some of them are going to be people who feel a bit more threatening. One thing that we can do as we're actually in situations is to really work with our breath. So to have that longer exhalation. It takes about 6 seconds for the relaxation response to come in. I found that this awareness of breath and keeping the breath smooth and enough volume to actually oxygenate our body. We're not gulping in air, but we're not just taking those little sips of air either. So that's really important for our emotional regulation. Talking in longer sentences, all of these things help to settle our nervous system. All of these things that we do ahead of time are what stabilize us as we go into these situations that are a little bit hard. So we have this resilience that we can build through relaxation and through inquiry. We're not as reactive as we were before. And we've all been around other people as well who are just really edgy. And it's hard to stay calm around someone who's really agitated and jumpy, and it tends to make us uneasy as well. There's a lot that we can do to develop a more regulated nervous system that really helps us in many, many different environments, of course. And also, it's a lot nicer way to live. When we're not always reactive to people, we have a lot more fun and a lot more agency as well. So I just wanted to talk about emotional flooding as well before we go into the inquiry practice. So this emotional flooding really hijacks our brain It's adrenaline and cortisol. It's when we feel overwhelmed. For instance, if you're in the middle of an argument with somebody and you're just starting to say things that you wouldn't normally say, or you're just feeling like, I got to get out of here, or you're in a freeze, you're just kind of hunkering down, you're hardly breathing. One of the things that we can do is recognize that that happens and that it's a process of about 20 minutes or so for those chemicals, the hormones, to release out of our brain. So if we can notice it, then we could stop it. We could take a break. We could say, right now I'm feeling like this is too much. I need to take a walk and come back. Can we meet again in a half an hour? There's all of those things that oftentimes we do have control over. Now, if you're in a meeting when something big is happening, or if you're at a family dinner, you often can't just say, okay, I want everybody to put this on hold for a half an hour. But sometimes we can. And sometimes we can just really go in and go, wow, I need to do some self-regulation here. So we hold our own hands, we do box breathing, we do all of those things that help to regulate ourselves. So let's go into the inquiry. So when we think about getting ready for any kind of a meeting, if we're at work, we generally tend to get our files together if we're presenting something especially. And if we're going to a family get together, we might be assembling something else, or we might be talking with someone else ahead of time. So we think ahead to these things. So think ahead to whatever it is that you're going to work with in this inquiry. What are the dynamics? Who's going to be there? When we think about who's going to be there, we also can use the predictive qualities of the brain to think ahead to what might be fun. But also in this case, we're looking forward to see what might be triggering to us or what might cause us to go into fight, flight, or freeze. What's going to take us out of regulation? So let's start there. Think ahead to who's going to be there, who always has the kind of behaviors that are difficult for us, who's always fawning at somebody, at a boss, who's encouraging to us, who can we count on for support. Some people are really safer for us than other people. Who might belittle us or who might make those comments that we feel like we have to defend ourselves against. So as we're doing that, keep noticing your body. Notice your breath. And you can do this with your eyes open or your eyes closed. Sometimes if you're feeling like you're too far into the visual, it's good to get your eyes open so that you can remind yourself through cues of safety that you're here. We're doing an inquiry, you're not actually in that situation. We're always looking to stay on that balance of I'm in it far enough to see and be aware of what's happening. What are my reactions? But I'm also aware that my feet are on the floor, my seat is on the chair. I can feel my body, I can work with my breath. So bring that to mind now. So we're going to take kind of a slow motion video in our head, and we're going to see where we get regulated and where we get dysregulated. When we are feeling upset or when we're feeling sensitized to what's going on, it often lands on core deficiency beliefs or experiences from the past. So that's why we're really using these tools to remain present. We want to stay in that zone of this is this moment, and I'm not actually in danger right now. So begin with softening your back body, let your shoulders release as you're working with whatever it is that you're working with. And visualize where you'll be before the meeting or before the get together. So maybe you're getting dressed, you're in your office, maybe you're on your phone playing a game. But as you're visualizing that, see yourself in the picture. So when we look out of something out of our own eyes, it feels much more immediate, like we're there. But if you can actually take that step back, see yourself in the picture as well, helps us to remember that we're looking at an image. So notice if there's any changes that are happening right now. Notice if anything changed in your breath. Relax your shoulders, let yourself be here, and notice, okay, that wasn't too bad. There's not a lot of activation there. I can still remain aware. Or maybe there's something that is like pretty alarming to your system, and right away you notice, and then you have an image of something or someone. So let's go into that. You're getting ready for the meeting, then you're walking into the meeting, you're looking around, and you're sitting however it is you're going to be in that gathering. Again, keep yourself in the picture as you're looking at that. And then choose and look, what is it about this that's uncomfortable? Is it a certain person? Maybe it's Aunt Mary who always makes that comment about our body, or whatever it is for you. So zero in on, you're looking at that picture, who is in that, or what is it about that that causes you to sit up and go, oh, yeah, that doesn't feel quite right. And then put that image into a frame. It's on the other side of the room on the wall. Notice the frame, the image in the frame. It might be words. Maybe you're presenting something and you're scared of what's going to happen. You might say, I'll look like a fool. Or maybe it's something else. So just put that into the frame and then notice the space around the outside edges of that frame. Take your eyes around that a few times in each direction. And then bring your eyes back into the image. Notice if anything has changed. You could do tapping on your forehead. Let that image be over there. Bring your attention into the sound and the sensation of the tapping. Take a few deep breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth, or you might do some box breathing. And because this is a visual that we're working with, it's a visualization of what we are predicting, what our nervous system is predicting might be uncomfortable. We can stop as much as we want. So you might stand up and do some shaking. Take your fists in the air and then throw the energy into the ground. You might do something physical with your body as well. So whatever it is you need to do. Box breathing is more bringing us back into the moment than the long exhalations. So you might start with box breathing and then go into the longer exhales. Do what comes to mind to help you settle. Remember that some of these things are going to be very difficult. They're not going to resolve in a couple of minutes. So we might need to be doing this kind of a walkthrough over and over for a little bit. I've done that in the past when I was getting ready for something that I thought would be difficult. I would go over it, not compulsively like catastrophic thinking, but just in this way of, I'm in my body right now. What is it that's alarming? If that initial image or words has settled a little bit, then bring to mind something else. Who else is there? What else might be said? You could put their picture up on that wall on the other side of the room. You could do some tapping. And when you're looking at an image like that, you could also shift your attention from the image to the everything that's around it. Let it go into focus and out of focus. All of these are tools that help our brain to realize that we're not actually in the situation. Get grounded again in your breath. And then look to see, what is it about this that relates to the past. If we were bullied at home or at school, for instance, we're going to have a more sensitized nervous system. We're going to feel this as more of a threat than if we weren't. If we have a lot of social anxiety, we're going to already be kind of anxious going into a meeting or a group. Let yourself just kind of notice, what is in your childhood that might have created this neuroception of danger. So let's take a moment for that and stay present with yourself. Also, just with this compassion that we can have too. There's nothing wrong with this, that we're reacting to our environment. This is normal. We can bring our adult self, our steadiness into this. And then what strengths do you have now that you didn't have then? One of the things that we have now that often we didn't have then is we have control over where our body is. So we can get up and leave much more easily than we used to be able to. If somebody is saying something nasty to us, we could leave, we could challenge them. We could say, I'm really uncomfortable when you speak to me with that tone of voice. Even if we're in a group meeting at work, and maybe it's the boss who's doing it, we might also have colleagues that we could look to for support. Or we might have a family member that we can just meet their eyes and kind of roll our eyes and go, yeah, there they go again. That way we don't feel so isolated. So think about, what are your strengths? Who might be your allies? And what is the situation for you now as an adult? If we're on Zoom, we could click disconnect. Whoops, my internet went down. We don't have to stay in those situations. So now see yourself doing that as well. Really bring that to mind. So you're still seeing yourself in the picture. The same people are still there. And if you were completely well regulated and could think of the perfect things to say and to do, let yourself run that through your mind for a moment as well. You might see yourself holding your own hand, see that you're breathing deeply, diaphragmatically. Maybe you were holding your breath and now you're smoothing it out again. What we're doing right now is two things. One is we're checking our neuroception, our perception of threat. Are we actually in as much danger as our younger self might be signaling? We are checking, what is our window of tolerance. As an adult, we can often say things, maybe directly, maybe indirectly. Maybe it's something we can express to somebody later. We could set a boundary and then see yourself doing it. Even if it doesn't feel like that's exactly what you would do, see yourself making a power play, a play of strength. Feel that in your body. And if there's anything that's kind of still dragging you back, notice that and see if you could have compassion. We're often in these really difficult situations The people who are in them with us aren't behaving well. A lot of people don't seem to care about kindness or connection. They don't care who they hurt. This is something that's legitimately difficult. Let's take the last minute or so here of the inquiry just to notice what's here. Let the visuals kind of move a little bit to the background. And if you wanted to get up and shake and move your body, if you wanted to do some box breathing, whatever it is you want to do to just kind of come back out of the inquiry now and just back into the present moment. Look around the room. And then reflect for a moment on what it is you learned through that process. Maybe that was something that was very illuminating. There was something that you weren't really aware of that might hijack you. Or maybe it was like, oh, yeah, I knew that was going to be the one. But then you experienced whatever it is that you experienced during the inquiry. And maybe to finish with something like hands on your heart. If you're feeling kind of dysregulated, hook your thumbs together and do that butterfly hug. Tap your hands alternately side to side. You can do the fluttering of the wings quite quickly or quite slowly. Also very regulating for the nervous system.